And if we may proceed with a roll call, please, Pam.
Yes, let Commissioner Certain in so he can join the fun.
Okay.
All righty.
Sorry, Pam, just one quick interruption. This particular roll call, you should call Kirk Batten's name, and then that'll set the record that he's not in attendance.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'm going to start with our newest commissioner, Commissioner Brankard. Are you with us?
I am present.
Welcome. Commissioner Candelaria.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay. Commissioner Certain.
Here.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Present.
Commissioner McWilliams.
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Modi. Commissioner Musharafi. Commissioner Patton. Commissioner Rader.
Present.
Commissioner Cipher.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Timmons.
I'm here.
Commissioner Vigil.
Here.
Vice Chair Wade, I'm not sure if I should call his name. Chair Stringer.
Here.
Chair Stringer, you have a quorum. We have 4 commissioners absent.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Great to see everyone. It was really nice during the deliberations last week to see everyone in person. So we'll see if we can start transitioning back to hybrid meetings in the future. But of course, today's meeting is a virtual meeting. Next up on our agenda is an approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, or does anyone want to propose any changes?
I would move to approve the agenda. This is Commissioner Timmons.
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Brankard.
Thank you. Shall we have a roll call vote, please, Pam?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Brankard.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Candelaria.
Yes.
Commissioner Certain.
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams.
Yes.
Skip down here. Commissioner Rader.
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons.
Yes.
Commissioner Vigil.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Stringer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, next is the approval of the January 11th, 2022 minutes. Any items for discussion or a motion for consideration?
Madam Chair. Commissioner Dominguez.
Yes, Commissioner. Yes.
I think the minutes accurately reflect the actions of the commission on January 11th, and therefore would move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez.
Madam Chair, I would second. David
Thank you,
Cipher.
Commissioner Cipher. I'm trying to note them afterwards, but you guys are doing that for me, so thank you.
Thanks.
Shall we have a roll call vote, please?
All righty. Commissioner Brankard.
I will abstain unless you need my vote.
All right. Got you down as abstaining. Thank you. Commissioner Candelaria.
Yes.
Commissioner Certain.
Yes.
And Commissioner Dominguez.
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams.
Yes.
Commissioner Rader.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Cipher.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson. Okay, well, we'll come back around to Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vigil?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, Chair Stringer?
Yes.
And one more time, Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have our introduction to our newest commissioner. I know Mr. Wade is not here, but we thank Vice Chair Wade for his service on it and him the best of luck in his next endeavor. So Commissioner Blanker, if you can pass that along to him, and I will try to do the same. But with that, we welcome Bill Brankard from the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department to the Commission, and thank you for your willingness to serve. And I didn't know, Commissioner Brankard, if you'd like to say a few words to the Commission. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, I'm the Chief of the Hearings Bureau at the Oil Conservation Division at the Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources Department. In the past, I have been the General Counsel and also a Division Director of the Mining Division, Energy and Minerals. This is my third term sign on with the Commission. For 2 months, I was a Commissioner at the end of 2010, and then representing state parks. And then back in the last millennium, when I worked at the Attorney General's office, I was the Assistant Attorney General for the Commission for 5+ years. So I'm glad to be back on board.
Well, welcome back, and thank you again. So that leads us nicely into the next agenda item, which is a nomination and election for a vice chair of the commission. So I first want to seek out anyone who would like to present a nomination for vice chair. I think I was notified of one, so I know we've got one that will be proposed. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do it or if they are. So commissioners, I invite you to present your nominations. Don't everyone present at once. Just kidding. Clearly, yeah, everyone's kind of waiting to see. But I was informed Commissioner Dominguez was willing to step up and serve in this role, and I would certainly nominate him to do so, if I may.
Madam Chair, my email may have been a little bit too concise. Although I'm flattered with that, I think I've served my time in the hopper, both as vice chair and as chair, and I always think it's good to spread the wealth around. So I'll respectfully decline. However, I would take the opportunity to nominate Commissioner Cipher for vice chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. I see now I completely misread your email. So maybe that was wishful thinking on my part when I read it, but I see that you could make the nomination, not that you were nominating yourself. So I apologize for that error, but I would certainly second the nomination for Commissioner Cipher if he's willing to accept.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair,
Cipher?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I am happy to accept the nomination. If there was somebody else that was at all interested, I would support them first. But I think as Commissioner has pointed out, it's nice for everybody to take a chance. I think that Commissioner Dominguez has done such an awesome job on the committee. I'm looking forward to, if this were to occur, never having to fill in for you, Chair Stringer, but if the occasion permitted, I would be happy to help.
Thank you, Commissioner Cipher. I think we'll do one last call for nominations to see if anyone else would like to run against Commissioner Cipher. Just kidding. As expected, I'm not hearing any other nominations. Commissioner Vigil, did you want to say something? I saw your light go on.
No, ma'am. I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. No worries. This technology, I'm still struggling. So we've got a nomination, and I guess it's a nomination, not necessarily a motion, but I think they're essentially equivalent here. So I think, Pam or Council Sanchez, correct me if I'm doing this wrong, but I think we're ready to vote on Commissioner Cipher as Vice Chair of the Commission.
Okay, hearing nothing from Council Sanchez, I'll proceed with a roll call vote on the nomination of Commissioner Cipher as Vice Chair. Commissioner Brankert, how do you vote?
In favor, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Candelaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader. I will come back around to Commissioner Rader. Oh, are you there? Okay, good.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Well, Commissioner Cipher, guess you can vote for yourself.
I think you were muted for that.
I thought if I stayed muted long enough that, anyway, yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vigil,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes and we have a new Vice Chair.
Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Cipher, on your new role. I think you'll do great. Moving on to our next agenda item is public comment. So I'd like to, at this time, ask the public if there are any members of the public that would like to comment, provide any general comment. I want to make sure I give everyone enough time to mute and be heard. Or unmute, I should say. Okay, not hearing anything, or I'm assuming, Pam, no one's contacted you to provide public comment. We will move on. Next up is the Cannon Air Force Base's petition for permit review and notice of appeal of the environment permit renewal and modification DP-873 and joint motion for stay of proceedings. Jordan F. Davis of the Air Force. Council Davis, are you present? There you are.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Please proceed.
Okay, so I guess before I get started with anything, I just would like to ask for a little bit of clarification about what will be done today during this meeting. So I looked at the agenda and I noticed it said to talk about the petition and also our joint motion for stay. My understanding based on the rules is that there would be a hearing officer appointed and then there would be a hearing scheduled 90 days later to actually go over the petition. But I am prepared to discuss with the InMed Council our joint motion for stay. So I think I would like to have a little bit of clarification about what's expected during the meeting today, if that's okay.
Sure, thank you for that. Yeah, there were multiple actions, and so in the end, we, in consult with our council, figured it would be best to combine these, and we did anticipate assigning a hearing officer or considering the petition to assign the hearing officer and review of the permit. And then subsequent to that, we would follow up to address the joint motion of stay. Well, it's kind of 2 agenda items formed into one. And so I think we need to split it in half essentially and take action on the first half of that and then take action on the second half. And again, I seek Council Sanchez's sage advice if I'm doing this incorrectly.
Chair Stringer, that's correct. Typically, the commission in instances like this will consider the petition, not hear it on its merits, of course, but simply to accept it for and then appoint a hearing officer or leave to your discretion as commission chair the appointment of a hearing officer. In this case, we have a motion to stay. So I think we need to initiate the proceeding by accepting the petition, and then the motion to stay can be considered. I should also point out that what I have not seen from Council for Cannon Air Force Base is a request, a waiver of the 90-day deadline under both 7465P and 20.1.316B, which require that the petition be heard, or the commission is traditionally interpreted that the commission needs to be heard within 90 days. If we're going to grant a stay, we should also have council stipulate to a waiver of the 90-day deadline. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Sanchez.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Sanchez. I really appreciate that. And it was my intention, at least, to have the motion for stay include a waiver of the 90-day deadline, and I'm willing to stipulate to that here during the meeting, or if necessary, I can write that up and submit it to the commission formally, but that was Cannon Air Force Base's intention. I will defer to Mr. Atencio at InMed if they have any different interpretation of what we were intending by our joint motion.
Chair Stringer, would you like me to address that now?
Yes, please.
The department, in terms of the 90-day waiver, I believe that's within Cannon Air Force Base discretion to waive that or not. To the extent that you need a stipulation from the Environment Department, the department would be willing to agree to that waiver of the 90-day deadline.
Thank you, Mr. Atencio.
Chair Stringer?
Yes, Council Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council, the motion to stay the Cannon Air Force Base filed is quite succinct. It makes no reference to the waiver of the 90-day deadline. So I would certainly request that Cannon Air Force Base's council, with the concurrence of Councilor NMED, file a separate waiver of that 90-day deadline. And I would ask also that council look at the form of order. When a motion is unopposed, it requires it's essentially a stipulated order. It requires a signature of both council. The pending motion to state that the accompanying order did not conform to the rules of procedure under the Water Quality Controls Commission's rules of procedure. And of course, I'd like, if that motion is going to be considered, that you have a proposed order in appropriate form and do the same with respect to the 90-day waiver. Thank you.
Yes, sir, understood. We will take a look at that, and I will make sure that we submit the 90-day waiver with the appropriate order. I guess a follow-up question with regard to what you just said is, for the motion for stay, will you all still consider that motion today, despite the fact that the order that we submitted doesn't have the required signatures, or is that something that I need to follow up with and correct before you will actually act on it today?
I would ask that you submit a proposed order that conforms to the rule, please, because it requires the signature of both Council for Canada Air Force Base and Environment.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Davis, was there anything else you wanted to speak to before the commission considered the request to assign a hearing officer for a review of the permit?
No, ma'am. There was nothing besides the stay and the waiver issue.
Chair Stringer?
Yes, Council Sanchez.
The usual practice has been whenever a petition is brought before the commission for consideration, the counsel for the petitioner typically will brief the commission regarding the request for relief in the petition, and then give counsel for NMED an opportunity to comment as well.
Yeah, that's why I asked Ms. Davis if you had any further discussion. Care to extend up to?
Well, my understanding from what Mr. Sanchez previously said was that we wouldn't get into the merits of the petition during this particular meeting. So is it now appropriate for me to go into the merits, or do I just need to request that you review the petition and assign a hearing officer?
Yeah, I typically a summary presentation, Sanchez's comment, but typically we do get kind of a summary as to why you are asked to review, and says as an opportunity to respond to. We proceed with the motion.
Okay. Ma'am, I don't know if I'm the only one, but you're breaking up a bit for me. But I do think I understand what you're asking for, which is just a summary of why we're requesting a permit review.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, sure. So Cannon Air Force Base is requesting that the commission review discharge permit 873 that was issued to Cannon Air Force Base on December 15th, 2021 by InMed. And the reasons, just briefly and succinctly, there are a lot more detail laid out in our petition, but the main reasons that we're requesting review is that, first of all, we believe that the Cannon Air Force Base has sovereign immunity, and that the DP 873 is not legally enforceable against the Air Force because sovereign immunity has not been waived for it to be enforceable. Secondly, we are requesting that you review the permit because there are several conditions within the permit that overlap with what the Air Force is already accomplishing under its CERCLA response, and expending funds to basically complete duplicative requirements would be a waste of taxpayer dollars. And so we're simply asking that the commission review that. And we asked also for a motion for remand, to remand it back to the department to take those provisions that are duplicative out of the permit. And then there were several other conditions that we included in our petition for things that are not duplicative but are still objectionable, such as the request that Cannon Air Force Base provide financial assurances and things of that nature. So those are really the three main points as to why we're requesting a permit review of DP 873 in front of the commission. But I should note that we're requesting the motion for stay because in the course of this appeal, since we initially filed the appeal, we've been engaged in productive settlement discussions. They're confidential, so I'm not going to go into the detail of what has been involved in those settlement discussions, but we have been engaged in productive settlement discussions with INMED, and we would like to put these appeal proceedings on hold so that we can continue focusing on those productive settlement discussions to try and solve our issues with the permit at the lowest level between the technical folks at Cannon and the technical folks at INMED. So that's a brief summary of why we're requesting a permit review. Hopefully that will be sufficient, but please let me know if you require additional detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Atencio, did you have any comments to add to this?
Thank you, Chair Stringer. And I should know I'm having some connection issues, so if it's okay, I'll turn off my video just so I can make sure that you all hear me. Thank you for your time, Chair Stringer, members of the commission, to come and briefly discuss this. In terms of getting into the merits of the petition, obviously that's not the appropriate time to discuss this. As far as granting a hearing request so that this matter can be considered, the department certainly does not object to that. It has, as Captain Davis has noted, both parties have been engaged in settlement negotiations and are requesting through the joint motion for stay, a stay of the deadlines that are associated with this kind of hearing before the commission. Because of that, some of the briefing that would normally be done at the outset has not yet been completed. But generally, the department disagrees with the points raised in terms of sovereign immunity, the unnecessity or inappropriateness of some of the permit conditions, and whether the permit is sufficient in itself as issued. The department believes that it was and is, and that all the proper administrative procedure was followed in issuance of this permit, as well as including response to comments raised during the public comment period. In terms of the motion for remand, I believe that matter has been briefed and the department's made its position clear in its response to the motion, which I believe has been filed with the commission. But decision on that, as well as the deadlines that are associated with the procedure for this hearing, I believe I'm in agreement with counsel for Cannon Air Force Base that those would be covered by this motion for stay. So in summary, the department doesn't object to participation or granting of a hearing of the petition, but would respectfully request granting of that motion for stay so that the parties have more time to work this out as Captain Davis described. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atencio. So now I open the item up for consideration by the commission. Any discussion or motion on the petition for hearing? Commissioner Dominguez, did you want to make a comment?
If no commissioners have questions, I think we could move to a motion if that's appropriate at this time. Hearing no other commissioners with questions, and correct me if I'm headed down the wrong path, but Madam Chair, I believe it'd be best to handle these as two separate motions. First, the petition, and then a motion for stay as a separate motion. Is that correct?
Yes, it's my understanding
Okay.
we do need to handle these separately.
Okay, with that said, then I would make a motion that the commission accept the petition for permit review and notice of appeal of the environment permit renewal and modification for DP 873. And that the chair be provided the discretion of assigning the hearing officer depending on scheduling of internal or external hearing officer.
Chair Stringer,
Thank you,
this
Commissioner.
is,
Go ahead.
I would second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Seif. So we have a roll
Chair
call vote,
Stringer?
Pam. Yes, Council Sanchez.
Madam Chair? Thank you. Just real quickly, if anyone understood me to be asking council initially to address the merits, that was incorrect. I simply wanted them to basically capsulize or summarize for the commission the nature of the request made in the petition. The question I have is whether the commission wants to also schedule the matter on the calendar anyway for hearing, along with appointing a hearing officer. I understand that there's a motion to stay on the table, but I think it would be useful to calendar it anyway after council can tell us what sort of time they're going to need to complete their pending negotiations. So what I would envision is an order scheduling the petition for hearing and appointing a hearing officer at your discretion. If Commissioner Dominguez wants to consider that, I would invite him to do so.
Commissioner Dominguez, do you have a response?
Madam Chair, I would look to you if you want an amended motion with a specific date, or to leave the potential scheduling date to the discretion of the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. I think it would be best if we went ahead and scheduled a date so we could at least consider availability of some of the commissioners. I mean, generally, of course, we'll be available for these meetings, but I think it would be good if everyone could anticipate when this matter would be heard.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll follow up then, probably for discussion with the commission and possibly look to Pam. I know we, looking at the, assuming the commission approves the motion for stay, obviously that pushes it out for 60 days. But what else we have on the calendar after that point in time? I know we have at least one other lengthy hearing scheduled. And if we would look at timeframes that maybe aren't quite so busy. So I think if Pam could help us out a little bit there, that would help.
Okay, looking ahead in the calendar, we have, the commission has the regular meeting on April 12th, which also includes a hearing on the Pecos matter. And then we have the regular May meeting on Tuesday, May 10th. But then I don't have a hearing for the commission in May. There is another hearing June 14th, and that is the WQCC 21-62, we're making the segments of the Rio Grande and other bodies of water. So that's in June. And that's all I have on the calendar for the commission.
Thank you, Pam. Madam Chair, question for you. I'm assuming May would be a little bit early to schedule this. And I'm going to make a suggestion based on the June scheduling for that other ONRW hearing. Those potentially can be multiple days. So I would recommend not June. Realistically, it looks like July would be a potential, but should we also go to counsel for Canon and Mr. Atencio for their input as what they would prefer as a potential hearing date?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Given the scheduling information that was just provided by Pam and what we have on our docket, and given that July is looking to be the next best opportunity for the Commission to consider this, I would seek feedback from both Canon and NMED's counsel on that proposed timeframe. And of course, it's dependent on the outcome of the settlement discussions. We'll go to Ms. Davis first.
Thank you. So, thank you, ma'am. So if I have it calculated, if the motion for stay were to be granted today, that would give us until May 7th, 2022. Sounds like May would be too early to schedule the hearing, so we're looking at July. I don't right now have any conflicts in July, but I would just have to check with my client to make sure that that date works. At this moment, though, I don't have any conflicts.
Thank you. Mr. Atencio.
Thank you, Chair Stringer. At this point, the department likewise does not have any conflicts that I'm aware of or problems with that date. I would also note that they would provide sufficient time. There is a briefing schedule required by the parties for an opening brief and an answer brief in this matter pursuant to 20.1.3.16 MAC. And that date provides what looks like sufficient time to cover all that should we need to get into that briefing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atencio. Commissioner Dominguez, does that give you enough information to consider a revision to your motion?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I don't know if it's possible, but before we set a date, I wonder if the counsel for the NMED or the Air Force have an estimate of how long a hearing such as this might take. I've read the record and it looks like it's going to be pretty contentious. And if that's the case, we may not want to schedule the hearing at our regular public meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Excuse me. Captain Davis or Mr. Atencio, do you have any comments or estimates of how long you think it would proceed? Seeking Captain Davis's comment first.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to defer to InMed counsel on that. Having never practiced in this forum before, I'm not able to really give an estimate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atencio, do you have a rough idea of how long you think this might occur or take?
Chair Stringer, members of the commission, my assumption would be probably at least a full day, given the number of witnesses NMED would be likely to call, as well as witnesses for Cannon Air Force Base, including any cross-examination and potential public participation that may arise due to the nature of this particular hearing. So my guess would be at least a day.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atencio. And before we go back to Commissioner Dominguez, seeking other comments from the commissioner on this rough proposed timeline of July to conduct the hearing that may take a minimum of 1 day. Okay. So, Commissioner Dominguez, would you like to revise your motion?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hate for that to get dragged out like that, but I think we needed to work through the minutia of that. So with that said, based on the input of the parties, I would amend my original motion to add to it that we schedule the hearing in conjunction with the regular July WQCC meeting and continue for however many subsequent days is necessary to complete that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez.
Chair Stringer,
Yes, Commissioner Cipher.
I would amend my second to conform to the changes.
Thank you very much. Shall we have a further discussion? Shall we have a roll call vote, please, Pam?
Okay. Commissioner Brankert, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Candelaria?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton?
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams?
Yes.
Commissioner Rader?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cipher?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Vigil? Commissioner Vigil, how do you vote?
We can count reading lips. I'm pretty sure he said yes.
Okay. And Chair Stringer, your vote?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So now we need to consider the motion for stay. I guess Captain Davis or Mr. Atencio, do you have any further comments on that before we proceed to discussion with the commission? Captain Davis?
I guess I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, that we're engaged in productive settlement discussions and would just request that we're able to continue those discussions for 60 days. That's all I have, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Mr. Atencio, did you have any comments specifically to the motion for stay?
Thank you, Chair Stringer. I would echo what Captain Davis said, that we'd like additional time to continue what have been good discussions thus far. And that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you. So commissioners, any discussion or motion on the motion? Yes, and on the motion to stay.
Madam Chair, I guess now that we've moved the hearing date out, my question is whether the 60 days are still appropriate, or whether the parties want a longer period, or the parties just want to set a date for when the first brief is due. Now that we have a date certain for the hearing, you can work backwards. So I guess I'm sort of wondering what the usefulness of the 60 days is at this point. Is that just delaying when the first brief is due? I don't know whether our council has any insight into this.
Council Sanchez, are you able to address Commissioner Brankard's comment? Hopefully we didn't lose Council Sanchez.
He
I don't
just
see him
signed
on.
back on.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Give him just a second to rejoin.
Chair Stringer?
Yes, Council Sanchez. Uh-oh.
Chair Stringer?
I can barely hear you, Council Sanchez. Oh, I don't think we have a good connection for him. I know he had technical difficulties earlier that related to this. Council Sanchez, I'm not sure if calling in will help us address this question. Commissioner Dominguez, I saw your hand.
Not to try to fill in as counsel, but maybe to keep the process moving along. I'll offer up a couple of things regarding Commissioner Brankard's questions there. I think most any time that the commission has considered a stay, there's always been some timeline tied to it. And I believe that's probably based on what the parties feel is necessary to potentially resolve an issue. Regarding the briefing side of it, I believe we have typically always left that up to the hearing officer to address that through the scheduling order of when briefs are due, etc. So I would assume that the hearing officer would take that up fairly quickly to set a scheduling order based on the 60-day timeline. But we may also want to hear from Captain Davis and Mr. Atencio.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. In my consultation with Mr. Chicali and the hearing officer, that was kind of what he described to me, how this should proceed. So yeah, all of those things would be addressed by the assigned hearing officer. Council Sanchez, I don't know if I want to give you the opportunity to weigh in if you're able to. I could see you've got a tile on here, but I'm not sure you're able to hear us or we're able to hear you.
Madam Chair, he sent me a message through the chat saying he's lost his internet connection.
Oh, no.
I don't know whether that means he can't hear us or not. And now he's gone from the participant list.
Okay.
I will readmit him as soon as I see him.
Okay. Well, I think this is relatively, well, it's a little confusing, but relatively straightforward that we can proceed with the motion to stay with the clarification that the scheduling will be done by the assigned hearing officer once that occurs. Captain Davis or Mr. Atencio, do either of you have any additional comments on that?
Ma'am, I don't have any objection to the hearing officer taking that on.
Okay. Mr. Atencio?
The department does not either, Chair Stringer.
Okay. So with that, I open any further discussion or a motion on the motion to stay the hearing with the understanding that the scheduling will be done by the assigned hearing officer. I will motion that we approve the motion for stay, again, with the understanding that the scheduling will be addressed by the hearing officer. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Shall we have a roll call vote on the motion to stay?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Brankard, how do you vote?
I vote yes, but I'd like to note for the commission an earlier discussion that I think this motion and the prior motion that we made are entirely dependent on the Air Force submitting their waiver of the 90-day deadline. So yes.
Okay.
Thank you for noting that. Yes.
Commissioner Candelaria?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Certain?
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McWilliams?
Yes.
Commissioner Rader?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cipher?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Hang on, I'm going to do a little bit of muting here. Commissioner Timmons?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Vigil? Commissioner Vigil, how do you vote on this motion?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair Stringer?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. That takes us into the next agenda
Madam
item.
Chair,
Yes, Council Sanchez.
my apologies to you and to the remainder of the commission. I lost connectivity until just very, very recently. So again, my apologies.
Thank you, Council Sanchez. Just to quickly summarize, we did proceed without you and considered the motion to stay, and it was approved, and noting that it's dependent on the 90-day waiver from Captain Davis and Mr. Atencio.
Thank you for the update. Before we go on, one quick question, if I could ask of Council Davis.
Yes, Council Sanchez, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council Davis, did I understand you correctly to say that it is Cannon Air Force Base's position that the commission does not have personal or subject matter jurisdiction over Cannon Air Force Base because of sovereign immunity? Is that what I understood you to say?
No, sir, that's not what I said.
Can you explain for me your claim of sovereign immunity?
Is this the appropriate forum to get into the merits of the petition? I thought earlier we decided that this was not the forum for that, and that should be saved for the hearing.
Well, it's not the merits. I'm just wondering whether you are arguing that the commission doesn't have jurisdiction to hear the matter.
No, sir, I'm not arguing that. By
Okay,
submitting
thank
an
you.
appeal to the commission, we are requesting that you exercise jurisdiction over the permit.
That was my confusion.
Okay. Thank you. Is that good, Council Sanchez?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 8, approval of the final draft State of New Mexico 2022-2024 Clean Water Act 303D, 305B, integrated list of assessed surface waters, and seeking John Verheule's counsel, Meredith Ziegler and Heidi Henderson are presenting on this topic. Please proceed, Council Verheule.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, also members of the Commission. Again, my name is John Verheule. I'm an attorney representing the New Mexico Environment Department in this matter. And as Chair Stringer said, we are before you today seeking approval of the Clean Water Act 303D, 305B integrated list. This is a document that's it's an appendix to the integrated report. The report is not before you for approval today. It's solely the list. This is Appendix A to the integrated report. As Chair Stringer pointed out, with me are 2 witnesses from our Surface Water Quality Bureau, Meredith Ziegler and Heidi Henderson. We also have in attendance today our Surface Water Bureau Chief, Shelley Lemon, as well as the program manager for this particular program, which is Chris Barrios, in case there are any questions or issues that come up from the Commission that are outside the scope of Ms. Ziegler or Ms. Henderson's expertise. Before I hand it over to Ms. Ziegler, I want to flag a couple things for the Commission. When we were before you in December requesting this hearing and requesting this approval, we noted that this integrated list, this approved by the WQCC integrated list, is due to EPA on April 1st. And that's still the case. So we're hopeful today that the Commission either approve the integrated list as we request it today, or at the very least make arrangements to facilitate such approval prior to April 1st, such that we can meet that deadline. The second thing I want to point out is a little bit more complicated, and Ms. Ziegler will describe it in much more detail. As a result of this Commission's deliberations last week on the triennial review, which of course are not official at this point because there's no final order and statement of reasons. However, our Surface Water Quality Bureau was there and understood what this Commission chose to do in the triennial review. And one of those changes was adopting a proposal from the Los Alamos National Laboratory that all classified, or rather all perennial waters up at that facility be classified in segment 126, which is 20.6.4.126 NMAC. And that impacted the standards classification of how the integrated list reads, which is also reflected in a comment that we had received earlier from the Los Alamos National Laboratory. So I believe Ms. Ziegler has a new slide in the presentation that she's going to provide you today, slide 19. But I want to flag for you that it's going to represent a change from what was originally submitted, and she will describe for your approval, hopefully, what it is that we're proposing to do to reflect your deliberations last week and your desire for those perennial waters to be classified under segment 126. So I apologize for the long introduction, but with that being said, I'll hand it over to Ms. Ziegler at this time.
Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Chair Stringer. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I think so. I can.
Okay, I am going to share my presentation. Are you able to see that?
I am, yes.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Chair Stringer and Commissioners. My name is Meredith Ziegler. I am here today to ask for approval of the 2022-2024 State of New Mexico 303D, 305B integrated list. This integrated list is Appendix A of the integrated report and includes both the 303D list of impaired surface waters and the list of assessed waters. This presentation and draft order were emailed to the administrator on February 3rd, and the order and associated documents are available on the WQCC docket. This is my first time presenting this Clean Water Act deliverable to the Commission, as I begun the position of Surface Water Quality Bureau Assessment Coordinator in June of last year after working on the monitoring team for several years prior. I look forward to working with the Commission in my new capacity here at NMED. To set the stage for today's presentation, here's a quick review of the Clean Water Act framework the Bureau operates under. Determining whether or not the water quality goals detailed in 20.6.4 NMAC are being attained for specific water bodies or stream reaches, referred to as assessment units, or AUs in this presentation, is the primary objective of the development of the integrated list, which is Appendix A of the integrated report. The integrated list informs the problem-solving part of the framework. Specifically, the Bureau develops TMDLs and watershed-based plans that inform NPDES permit certification and address point sources, and the implementation of best management practices to address non-point sources. These next few slides provide a more detailed explanation of the integrated list and why we are presenting it to the Commission today. The integrated list is a state's list of assessed waters, and the term 303D list or list is the state's list of impaired waters, impaired stream, river segments, or lakes. The list is designed to satisfy the statutory requirements of Sections 303D of the Federal Clean Water Act. It is submitted to EPA for approval every even number year by April 1st. For each water on the list, the state certifies the pollutant causing the impairment when known and assigns a priority for development of a total maximum daily load, also known as a TMDL. The list and associated supporting documents are available on our website as shown in the figure to the right. Under the New Mexico Water Quality Act, the Water Quality Control Commission, or WQCCC, is the water pollution control agency for all purposes of the Clean Water Act in New Mexico. The New Mexico Environment Department is the primary constituent agency responsible for administering and enforcing all programs implemented by the state under the Clean Water Act. NMED is also the principal source of technical expertise to the WQCC for Clean Water Act actions and activities. Under Clean Water Act Section 303D, states must develop and submit a list of impaired waters for EPA approval. EPA approves or disapproves of the state's 303D list of impaired waters meeting TMDLs. The integrated list, the 303D list, is incorporated by reference into the New Mexico Water Quality Management Plan and continuing planning process, also known as the WQMP CPP at Section 3C. This figure shows the watersheds in New Mexico, which were the primary focus of this particular listing and assessment cycle. The Bureau completed 2-year watershed rotational surveys in the Lower Rio Grande, and the Upper Pecos, San Francisco, Gila, and Mimbres rivers during the years 2019 through 2020. There were additional sources of data this cycle, and they included EPA and USGS Animas and San Juan Rivers data downloaded from the Water Quality Portal, Chevron Cuesta Mine Superfund site Red River Rio Grande to Placer Creek data submitted by the NMED Groundwater Quality Bureau, Albuquerque Metropolitan Arroyo Flood Control Authority, or AMAFCA, submitted data, Los Alamos National Laboratory submitted data, and the NMED DOE Oversight Bureau data downloaded from Intelis, New Mexico for select assessment units, Sentinel's Rio de Taos data for various streams in and around Taos, and Red River submitted by Amigos Bravos, and Pathfinder Environmental LLC submitted data. Associated external data quality determinations are available on our integrated report website. The integrated list, Appendix A of the integrated report, contains the Bureau's assessment conclusions and documents surface water quality designated use attainment by individual assessment unit. Specifically, the integrated list contains designated use attainment status for each assessment unit based on the most recent WQCC and EPA approved version of 20.6.4 NMAC available at the time of assessment and assessed using the procedures described in the Bureau's current comprehensive assessment and listing methodology, referred to as the CALM. It also includes AU and parameter or impairment cause integrated reporting categories 1 through 5 based on the Bureau's CALM and the EPA's integrated report guidance. New Mexico's list of impaired waters, or the Clean Water Act 303D list, is specifically all IR Category 5 waters in Appendix A, the integrated list. And it is the focus of EPA Region 6's approval. The integrated list contains information on 845 assessment units, which breaks down to 672 stream river reaches and 173 lakes and reservoirs. An overall AU category has been determined for each assessment unit, as well as each identified impairment parameter within each assessment unit. These next two slides describe the various integrated reporting categories. Categories 1 and 2, those waters have been monitored and are meeting Clean Water Act goals. Category 3 is assigned when we have no or not enough data to make an assessment. The Bureau created subcategories within IR Category 3 to help with survey planning and to fill those data gaps. Category 4 is assigned to impaired waters with TMDLs or other pollution control requirements in place, or if the impairment is due to pollution as defined by EPA as opposed to a specific pollutant. EPA considers IR Category 5 waters to be New Mexico's official Clean Water Act 303D list. The three subcategories in IR Category 4 are official EPA-defined integrated reporting categories, while the four subcategories in IR Category 5 are state-defined and help the Bureau guide activities. It is important to note that Category 4 waters are also impaired, even though they are not technically on the 303D list. This slide summarizes the general timeline of the development of the 2022-2024 integrated list in relationship to the primary data sources in the public participation process. I will go over these components in additional detail in upcoming slides. Please note that the primary source of assessment data for any given listing cycle is the Bureau's previous 2-year rotational watershed surveys. Therefore, the Bureau's monitoring schedule determines the focus of any given integrated reporting cycle. Assessment unit determinations outside of these watershed survey areas remain largely unchanged, unless, for example, there is a source of outside data to assess or an applicable water quality standard change between reporting cycles. Now I will step through the public participation process. The revised comprehensive assessment and listing methodology, also known as the CALM, combined with the official data solicitation, went out for an extended 37-day public comment period on June 18th through July 26th of 2021. EPA Region 6 also provided review of our listing methodology at this time. Following this period, all accessible data was collated, QA'd, and verified and assessed against the water quality standards. The draft 2022-2024 303D integrated list went out for a 45-day public comment period, November 30th, 2021 through January 14th, 2022. During this time, EPA Region 6 also provided additional review. It was posted to the SWQB website. An email announcement sent via Gov Delivery to over 1,900 recipients in both Spanish and English. And we received specific comment sets from both Buckman Direct Diversion Board and Los Alamos National Laboratory. There were a few specific changes to the integrated list based on the public comment received, as well as additional staff review, and these are noted in Appendix C of the integrated report entitled Response to Comments. The next 2 slides cover these changes. Specifically, there were minor revisions and clarifications to the associated assessment unit comments and associated assessment rationale, formerly referred to as the ROD. We updated several AU parameter pairs to IR Category 4A due to several TMDLs that were EPA approved in late November. These include Blue Water Lake for nutrients, Vallecito Creek, Jemez Pueblo boundary to the diversion above Ponderosa for dissolved arsenic, Rio Guadalupe, Jemez River to the confluence with Rio Cebolla for specific conductance, Jemez River, Zia Pueblo boundary to Jemez Pueblo boundary for temperature, Rito de los Indios, San Antonio Creek to the headwaters for temperature and turbidity, and Clear Creek, Rio de las Vacas to San Gregorio Lake for temperature. For the assessment unit Rio Grande, Cochiti Reservoir to San Ildefonso boundary, we updated the estimated TMDL date to 2027 to address TMDL data needs that will be covered during the 2023-2024 Middle Rio Grande Water Quality Survey. A few more specific changes were made to the integrated list based on the public comment received. For Los Alamos Canyon, New Mexico 4 to DP Canyon, we added total recoverable selenium and removed total mercury impairments due to assessment of recent data. For Morton Dad Canyon within Flannel, we removed total mercury and PCBs impairments due to assessment of recent data. We changed the water type for Fish Ladder Canyon, Cañón de Valle to headwaters, Pajarito Canyon above Homespread Spring to Flannel boundary, Pajarito Canyon, 2 Mile Canyon to 500 miles down or 500 meters downstream of Arroyo de la Delfe, to stream ephemeral, based on recent hydrology protocol or HP work and hydrograph data. For Starmer's Gulch, Pajarito Canyon to headwaters, we corrected the water quality standard reference to 20.6.4.126 and changed the water type to stream perennial to be consistent with this reaches classification under 20.6.4.126 NMAC. And for Sandia Canyon, Sigma Canyon to NPDS Outfall 001, we corrected the PCB's listing to IR Category 5C, which had been previously listed as 4B due to a data entry error. All public comments were carefully considered. An extensive response to comments documents was prepared and posted to our website and emailed to commenters prior to this meeting, and included as Appendix C of the integrated report. In addition to 303D lists, states are also required to submit Clean Water Act Section 305B water quality reports to EPA. The 305B report contains information on the water quality status of all waters in the state, an analysis of the extent to which the Clean Water Act Section 101A2 goal of surface water quality, protection and propagation of fish, shellfish, and wildlife and recreation in and on the water is being achieved, an overview of the progress in water quality pollution control, and a description of the nature of non-point source pollution programs for non-points and programs for non-point source and pollution control. Given that both the 305B report and the 303D list are due at the same time, April 1 of every even-numbered year, EPA recommends that the states combine them into a single integrated report, even though the EPA approves only the 303D list. These next two slides provide summaries of the information held in the integrated list this listing cycle. This summary graphic of designated use attainment status by stream mileage was generated using our data held in our internal database. Please note that all fish culture, public water supply, and industrial water supply designated uses are defaulted to not assessed because no numeric criteria apply uniquely to these uses. This is a summary graphic of designated use attainment status by lake acreage in New Mexico. Again, please note that fish culture, public water supply, and industrial water supply designated uses are defaulted to not assessed because there are no numeric criteria that apply to these uses. This slide compares the top causes of impairment in streams and rivers this cycle as opposed to last cycle. Note the differences on the x-axis, including increased E. coli impairments, which overtook nutrients and eutrophication as the second top cause in rivers and streams this cycle. Benthic macroinvertebrates were also added to this list of top causes of impairment listings due to a large number of streams found to be impaired for benthic macroinvertebrates after performing newly added probabilistic sampling in streams, which included a bioassessment component. Temperature remains the leading cause of impairment. This slide compares the top causes of impairment in lakes and reservoirs this cycle as opposed to last cycle. Please note that the listings based on contaminants in fish tissue are based on fish consumption advisories. Elevated levels of chemical parameters in fish tissue are the result of bioaccumulation of the aquatic food chain. NMED, the Department of Health, and New Mexico Department of Game and Fish collaborate on the development of fish consumption advisories. The advisories are posted on both the Bureau's website as well as the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish website under their legal and safety advisories in the subsection titled Catch, Release, or Eat. During the 2020 triennial review deliberation, the Commission approved an amendment to classify all Flannel perennial waters within 20.6.4 NMAC, or 20.6.4.126 NMAC. As a result of this decision, the department proposes the following changes to the integrated list. The primary change is revision of the standards reference for the following assessment units that the department had identified as unclassified perennial waters under 20.6.4.99 NMAC back to 20.6.4.128 NMAC, ephemeral intermittent portions of watercourses within Flannel. These are Ancho Canyon, Rio Grande to Ancho Springs, Arroyo de la Delfe, Pajarito Canyon to Keeling Spring, Pajarito Canyon, 500 meters downstream of and to Arroyo de la Delfe, Water Canyon above New Mexico 501, Pajarito Canyon, Starmer's Gulch to Homespread Spring, and DP Canyon, 100 meters downstream of the grade control to 400 meters upstream of the grade control. Next, we propose the addition of the following AU comment to the above assessment units. Quote, hydrology protocol survey results indicate this AU is perennial. Standards revisions affecting this AU are currently a matter under consideration in the 2020 triennial review. NMED will update the AU standards reference appropriately following rule publication and subsequent EPA action. Finally, the department will amend the response to comments, Appendix C of the integrated report, to be consistent with the changes noted above. Please note that these changes do not affect the IR category or impairment determinations for these water bodies. The final draft version of the integrated list, Appendix A, Appendix C response to comments, and supporting documents were provided to the WQCC administrator and posted to the Bureau's website on February 3rd. The final draft version of the integrated report was posted to the Bureau's website on February 25th. The availability of final documents was also announced via email to commenters prior to this meeting. The Bureau is requesting that the Commission approve and incorporate the integrated list as proposed. The next steps are listed here. If the WQCC approves the integrated list, then NMED will submit the WQCC approved integrated list and associated 305B report, collectively integrated report, to EPA Region 6. EPA determines whether the integrated list, Appendix A, meets the requirements of the Clean Water Act, Section 303D, and NMED submits the integrated list, Appendix A of the integrated report, electronically to EPA's Attainment database. I've provided the main integrated list contacts here, and at this time we are happy to take any questions that the Commission may have.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to sort of close the loop on this a little bit and be very clear that the integrated list that we're requesting Commission approval of is the integrated list as previously supplied and published, but with the changes described on slide 19 and as described by Ms. Ziegler as a result of the Commission's deliberations last week, which obviously we could not have anticipated. And so I realize it's a little bit awkward and I apologize for it, but we're trying to do the best we can in this scenario to respect what the commission wants to do with those waters and submit as accurate a list as possible to EPA.
Thank you, Mr. Verhul, for that clarification. I was assuming we needed to address that when we do the formal adoption, so I was going to try to watch for that to ensure that we were covering that base, but thank you for pointing that out. I will go to the commission for any discussion or questions to the presenters.
Chair Stringer?
Yes, Vice Chair Cipher.
If this is a little off base, we can defer this question to another time, but I noticed with some alarm, the amount of our lakes impaired or listed as impaired due to the fish tissue samples of mercury. Could I get some kind of a brief idea how we're following up on this and what we would hope to accomplish by the said follow-up?
Ms. Ziegler, do you have a response? Or Mr. Verhul?
Yes, Chair Stringer, I can address that question. As mentioned in the presentation, those impairments for lakes that are due to fish consumption advisories, is that what you're referring to, Commissioner? Those
yes.
mercury listings in fish tissue are taken from fish consumption advisories.
Yes, and so what we have is an alarming amount of our water bodies impaired with mercury, it appears, at least if, as we use the indicator of fish tissue samples. My question is there any hope for remedy of that? And do we have a plan in place or what is, if anything, being done to address it? I was surprised to see the number of lakes with the mercury impairment.
Absolutely, Commissioner. While and Heidi can correct me if I'm wrong on this. While we can't address these impairments via a TMDL, these impairments are more addressed via the Fish Consumption Advisory, which advises the public on the safe number of meals per month of fish that are safe to eat out of these particular lakes. And oftentimes, these numbers are quite high for the number of fish that are safe to eat because the concentration of mercury is small enough that you would have to consume quite a large number of fish per month out of these lakes. However, these advisories are very, very conservative and in nature, and they are mainly targeted towards vulnerable populations such as small children, pregnant women, and breastfeeding women. I do understand that it does look like an alarmingly large number of impairments, but I do want to point out that these are slightly different impairments by their nature, that they are linked directly to the Fish Consumption Advisory, which is not necessarily indicative of the chemical sampling of the lake itself. Did you want to add something, Heidi?
Well, thank you, Ms. Ziegler. I think that explains our approach. Our approach is simply consumption advisories to the public, particularly to our most adversely affected populations. But as to a plan to remedy or address the source, it must not be feasible to do so, or there is no plan in place for that. Is that correct?
I am not aware of a plan that we have in place that we are able to implement for the fish tissues specifically, other than continuing sampling and advising the public on the concentrations that are present in the fish. There's
I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to respond and say thank you. I thought as much, but I wanted to see if maybe there was some kind of a long range approach that we were going to take to see if there were any remedy with so many of New Mexico's water bodies affected, if there was some kind of a potential remedy. Maybe it's just not possible. I don't know that, but it was just a concern, and I appreciate your response.
Thank you, Commissioner Cipher. Other questions from commissioners? Mr. Brancard, or Commissioner Brancard, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the triennial review, are the only segments that are impacted by the triennial review as it relates to this list those that were discussed on slide 19?
Commissioner Brancard, I'll try to answer that question. My understanding is yes.
And the point of the information then on slide 19 is to sort of put EPA on alert that these segments will be addressed differently in the future once the stream standards are become effective?
The information on slide 19, Commissioner Brancard, is really specifically for this commission to understand that what we had submitted previously as the final draft version, and we submitted it to the commission well over 30 days prior to this meeting, it would have been contradictory in terms of the standards classification for those particular segments at Flannel. And I say contradictory based on this commission's deliberation last week. And so the solution that we arrived at was to essentially apply the standards classifications that they were in previously, which was segment 128. And then at some point in the future, once the triennial review is complete and becomes effective for the purposes of state law, we will look at how to handle those going forward in terms of how they're properly classified or listed, I should say, in the integrated list. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is that these changes are not effective yet. And they will only, and as I understand this process, it's you're dealing with changes within a cycle period. So these changes will become effective in the next cycle period and should be addressed in the next list. Is that correct?
It is, Commissioner Brancard. Let me try to explain a little bit more fully. So the commission's deliberation last week was what came out of it was that all perennial waters within the Flannel facility should be classified in segment 126. Okay. There were waters that were previously classified in segment 128, and it had been the department's position in the triennial review that those had automatically moved to segment 99 based on something that's in the water quality management plan. Okay, and so in the integrated list that we submitted prior to triennial review deliberations, those show up in the integrated list with the standards classification of segment 99. Okay, so we didn't move them to segment 126. What we did was we applied the standards classification that they were in previously, which was 128. So what we're asking for approval of is not reflective of what the commission will, in all likelihood, order as a result of the triennial review. It's actually reflective of the state of affairs prior to when the department thought or took the position that those water bodies should be moved to segment 99.
Okay, and I assume that what you have done is also partly in response to the comments you received by Flannel in the process of this public comment period?
Well, Commissioner, that certainly helped us flag the issue. And we are issuing a modified response to comments as well, which we've already shared a draft of with Flannel, and we've worked with them offline such that they understood what we intended to present to the commission today. And certainly there are various representatives from Flannel here today, so they can speak for themselves as to whether or not they agree or disagree. What we've done, however, is we've reverted to the, we've reverted to the prior list's water quality standards references, which were already effective for both state and federal law. We think that is the cleanest, safest, most conservative way to handle this.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not doing something that's way outside what had been submitted to the public previously, or was not part of the public comment process, or that we're making decisions based on some regulatory changes that are not yet effective. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like you're following the process, you're dealing with the issues that have been at play all along, and we're part of the public interaction with Flannel during this process. So I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And mine is more of a follow-up question because I think I've gone full circle. I thought I understood everything, and then the water got kind of muddied there. And my questioning is along the same lines as Commissioner Brancard's questions were. I'm trying to get clear if what's being asked of the commission is an amended list based on the signing of the statement of reasons and final orders for deliberations due to changes made during deliberations. So for Mr. Verheul, is the list being modified based off of last week's deliberations?
Dominguez, thank you for the question, and I fully acknowledge that this is confusing. We had a lot of internal confusion when we were discussing this over the last several days, so I'll try to be as clear as possible. No, we are not asking the commission to approve something based upon any deliberations last week, which are not final by any means for purposes of state law. As you point out, there's been no final order or statement of reasons issued. They haven't been published in the New Mexico Register. Those are not final decisions for the purposes of state law, or certainly not federal law. So what we've done here is that we've reverted to the prior water quality standards classification of the prior list, which based on our best understanding are still effective for the purposes of state and federal law. The other point I'd like to make is that changing the standards reference in the list does not change any assessment conclusions whatsoever. right? So think of this as a labeling exercise. We've simply had to go back to the prior labels, which are, again, still the effective ones for the purposes of state and federal law, rather than what we had previously understood should be the correct labels. But the actual conclusions, the substance of the list, does not change.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Verheul. I think I'm a little bit cleared up now. My concern was along the same lines as Commissioner Brancard's concerns of the public participation side of things. So, but I think we're in okay shape. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Additional questions? I had one clarifying question, Ms. Ziegler. On slide 8, the categories described for category 1 and category 2, unimpaired or restored, meets all monitored applicable water quality criteria. And then the next section of category 3, there's not enough information. So my question is, just for my own understanding, are there water quality criteria that are not monitored and not placed in category 3? And can you clarify that distinction for me, please?
Certainly, Chair Stringer. I'm looking at slide number 8, and I just want to make sure I understand your question. So category 1, IR category 1, indicates that all designated uses are supported as monitored. IR category 2 indicates that information indicate that some designated uses are supported while others are not assessed. And that very well could be because there's a lack of monitoring data. And then with regards to IR category 3, there are different variations of an insufficient data availability to make designated use support determinations. And so category 3A means there's no data available to make those determinations. The category 3B means that there was not a minimum number of samples available to assess. 3C means that there was not a minimum number of samples to assess, but the data that was available indicates that the water quality standards are being exceeded. I also want to point out that the IR categories are parameter specific, and so there are both AU IR categories and parameter specific IR categories. So there is not only one IR category per AU, there are different IR categories for each parameter within that AU. And then an overall AU category.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I got a little hung up on that. Thank you. Additional questions or discussion from commissioners? Do I have a motion to adopt the integrated list, sorry?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Brancard, I would move that we adopt the State of New Mexico 2022-2024 Clean Water Act, Section 303D, Section 305B, integrated list of assessed surface waters, as amended today by the Environment Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thanks.
Commissioner Timmons, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Timmons. Pam, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Starting with Commissioner Brancard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Candelaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Surgeon,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton. Oh, wait, he's not here. Commissioner Rader, I apologize. Commissioner Rader, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about the confusion. Vice Chair Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Vigil, thank you. Thank you. Chair Stringer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, presenters for the nice presentation and short summary of the integrated list. And congratulations on the. Moving on, our next agenda item is next meeting and expected upcoming matters. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 12th, where we will hear the proposal for the PECOS outstanding national resource waters and any additional items for discussion for for April.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I apologize. My WebEx just completely died and whatever. I'm on a phone now. So I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I wanted to know if we are allowed to comment on the statement of reasons that Council Sanchez has prepared to support the triennial stream standards.
Madam Chair,
Council Sanchez, I was going to see if you had a comment on that.
I do. The matter is not on the agenda today. It hasn't been duly noticed under the Open Meetings Act. I did send blind carbon copies to all the commissioners and invited the commissioners that they found any errors or omissions in my final draft, that they send those comments to Chair Stringer. It's on her desk now for final review and approval. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. That was my understanding. Any comments would be taken offline to finalize that statement of reasons.
Okay, I will send my comments to you and copy them to Council Sanchez. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Okay.
Madam Chair, just
yes,
a follow-up suggestion. I think Commissioner Thompson covered that, but when he does respond, do not include the other commissioners, as that would potentially fall over into a rolling quorum. So if he just sends that to the chair and council, that was probably best advised.
Madam Chair, to echo Commissioner Dominguez's comment, that's entirely correct, which is why I blind carbon copied the commissioners and asked them specifically not to discuss any comments they might have with each other. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both. That's an important clarification, so I'm glad you all noted that. Okay, with that, I will adjourn the...
Madam Chair.
Not yet. Yes,
yeah,
Commissioner
sorry, don't mean to drag this out. The April meeting, just for planning purposes, I believe when that was scheduled, it would potentially run for multiple days. Is that correct, or does Pam have some clarification?
Okay, that was my understanding, but Pam, do you have any more specificity to that?
No, ma'am, I don't.
You plan to do it for just an agenda that states until completed, or okay?
Yes,
So
that's
that's
correct.
how we'll notice the meeting, is that we will start the hearing and then continue until
Day by day.
And am I correct in assuming that that will be a virtual meeting in April?
we had not made any plans at this point to have a hybrid meeting for that. So yes, I think everyone was on the understanding it would be a completely virtual meeting.
Okay, thank you. Just for planning purposes. And then lastly, not to dig up a dead horse that we've already beat to death, but back to WQCC 22-01. And I think it was alluded to, but there was an additional motion that we didn't have on the agenda, and rightly so, and that was the opposed motion for remand. So am I correct in the comment that that particular motion would only be brought up or addressed after the 60-day stay that we've put into place? At that point in time, then that pending motion would be addressed. Is that correct?
Commissioner Dominguez, that is my understanding as well, but I look to Council Sanchez to ensure that's correct.
Commissioner Dominguez, that is correct. Yep. Basically, NMED has asserted that the motion for remand needed to be filed simultaneously with a petition for review. That was not the case. So that would be really in a sense, a jurisdictional matter on that particular motion for remand, which is why I also asked a question about subject matter jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will shut up now.
Okay. Any additional comments?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Timmons. I just had a kind of administrative request. It's to me like the calendar, I don't know, maybe it's just me. The calendar invites that I think maybe Pam had set up previously have not, they don't go very much farther into the future. And thinking about these multi-day meetings, if it's at all possible to kind of send out an invite for the commissioners so that it does block out the dates on our calendar, I would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to do that, and we'll do so today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Verheuel.
I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. Normally, Council Sanchez prepares an order for your signature following approval of a document, such as the integrated list that was approved today. I note that you're going to be out of the office for a certain period in March, and that's coming up fairly shortly. Is it your understanding, or is it correct that I'm sorry, Vice Chair Cipher will have authority to sign on your behalf during that period?
That's a good question. I guess I assumed I would cover that even while I was out of the office, because we were in limbo without a vice chair until this morning. So I don't have a specific answer. I knew that was on my radar, and I anticipated signing the order, make sure it got completed.
I appreciate that, Chair.
Okay. So we'll proceed accordingly.
Madam Chair.
Unless Council Sanchez lets us know otherwise. Go ahead, Council Sanchez.
Madam Chair. Thank
Yes.
you. Council Verheuel, we would certainly welcome a proposed form of order to expedite this and hopefully have it on Chair Stringer's desk for signature before she leaves us.
I will prepare a draft and send it over, Council Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I will watch for that. Okay. last call for any additional comments on upcoming matters. Seeing none, I will adjourn the March meeting of the Water Quality Control Commission. Thank you all for attending, and I feel it was a very productive day. So thank you, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you.